Are you ready for some Konstantin Kisin wisdom? Well, before destroying the BBC was a sport for him, Constantine was a comedian and a podcaster, regularly hosted people from different backgrounds to have conversations on difficult topics, but after going on an Oxford reunion debate, he was quickly on the radar of many prominent figures on the right because of how effectively he articulates common sense and reason in the face of wokeism. Tucker Carlson was one of those people and had him on this show back when he still used to work at Fox News. But before I delve deeper into it, watch the clip of Constantine's speech at Oxford Union.
This country is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, which means that if Britain was to sink into the sea right now, it would make absolutely no difference to the issue of climate change. You know why? Because the future of the climate is going to be decided in Asia and in Latin America by poor people who couldn't give a about saving the planet. 120 million people in China do not have enough food. I don't mean that they don't get dessert, I mean they suffer from malnutrition. That means that their immune system is breaking down because they don't have enough food. You're not going to get them to stay poor. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest, is to throw soup on paintings. We know that the way to improve the world is to work, is to create, it is to build. And the problem with woke culture is that it's trained too many young minds like yours to forget about that.
Now, you'll notice if you watch that video that he's not reading that. There's no teleprompter. He's ad-libbing that whole thing. That is right off the top of his head. That's not easy.
That is spot on from Constantine. The woke left focuses too much on making everyone believe they're victims. If that was true, then who is the oppressor? They focus on fighting an invisible enemy and have so far managed to rally a lot of people behind their radical ideological crusade. By the way, do subscribe for more discussions like this. You see, when you encourage people to adopt a victim mentality, you have to focus on grievances, amplifying issues to the extent that individuals start feeling powerless. Individuals who continuously perceive themselves primarily as victims live in a state of passivity where they are less likely to take provocative steps towards change or personal growth. This mindset reduces resilience as it externalizes the sources of one's problems and diminishes personal agency. Adopting such a mentality leads to identity politics because people are encouraged to see themselves as part of monolithic groups that are uniformly oppressed or privileged, which leads to oversimplifying complex issues such as climate action. Robert Horowitz, who is an associate professor at the University of California, San Diego, sums it up best in his research paper, noting, quote, "The victim has become among the most important identity positions in American politics."
Konstantin Kisin is the co-host of the Trigonometry podcast. He joins us tonight. Sure appreciate your coming on. I think the video of your remarks at the Oxford Union has been shared more than anything on social media in the U.S. in a long time. How was the response to what you said?
It was great. I think people really enjoyed it, and I think it's partly because people are fed up of wokeness, as of course you know. But I think also there's another thing going on, Tucker. We live in a society in which adults are afraid of children, and young people in particular. And so when you see somebody who is an adult talking to young people and being straight with them and saying, look, if you care about certain issues in the world, if you care about climate change or racial injustice or whatever, whining and complaining is not going to fix that problem. That we need young people to step up and actually work and build and create things. And as I said in the speech, to create the technology and the science that is going to help solve all the problems of the future. So I think that's one of the reasons it's gone so viral, and the feedback has been incredible. I really haven't received any negative feedback at all. It's been very, very positive. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, that's the result of cancel culture. You see, cancel culture has become a significant factor in how people communicate and conduct themselves. Adults aware of the rapid consequences that can arise from a single misstep in word or deed, fear that an unintended offensive remark could lead to severe repercussions. This fear is particularly apparent in interactions with younger people, who are generally more active on social media platforms where cancel culture frequently manifests and proliferates. Additionally, there is an increasing emphasis on being excessively polite and careful with language to avoid offending anyone. While the intention behind this is to create a more inclusive and respectful society, it has led to overcaution. Adults may feel lost on acceptable terminology and viewpoints, which requires constant vigilance and adaptation. This is especially challenging given generational differences in the understanding and use of language. Since the woke left keeps changing the meaning and usage of words, the combination of these factors leads to a communication gap where adults withhold genuine opinions or avoid discussing certain topics altogether with younger individuals. This restraint limits honest and open dialogue essential for mutual understanding and learning between generations. Instead of engaging in fruitful discussions that could bridge generational divides, adults opt for surface-level interactions that avoid depth and controversy.
It's the first time in a long time I've seen somebody directly challenge the prevailing view on campus and not get shouted down. How did that happen?
Well, as you say, I think I made a rational argument, and I think this is the thing that I've been thinking about a lot. You know, we spoke a few years ago, and as a comedian, I was concerned about the erosion of free speech and the censorship,
Yes.
particularly in this country, in the UK. But as we've interviewed people in trigonometry, as we've spoken to some of the greatest minds, you know, the Jordan Petersons of the world and many others, what I've started to realize is that this ideology, wokeness, is fundamentally anti-human. And the narrative goes something like this, you know, we are evil, particularly Westerners, especially, you know, straight white men like you, but actually all of us are evil and we must be punished. And that's why some of the solutions that we're being offered to the issue of climate change don't seem to make much sense. I don't really see how making pensioners in Britain freeze to death over the winter is going to solve the problem of climate change, or indeed impoverishing people in India and China. And I think actually we've got to believe that young people are persuadable. We've got to make rational arguments to them. And that is, I think, the way to deal with many of these problems. We've got to challenge young people to step up and be better.
The woke left only highlights the negative impacts of human activity on the environment, focusing on themes like pollution, climate change, and biodiversity loss as primarily human-caused problems. While these issues are real and serious, the narrative frequently focuses solely on blame and guilt, often suggesting that humans are a disease on the planet. Take the tweet of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, for example, where he says, quote, "Like the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs, humanity's having an outsized impact on our planet. In the case of the climate crisis, we are not the dinosaurs, we are the meteor. We are not only in danger, we are the danger, and after all that doomsday and self-loathing," he adds, "but we are also the solution." He also said the exact same words in one of his recent speeches. So we're supposedly destroying the world and are headed to certain extinction based on his simplistic analogy? That's what Constantine means when he says the woke culture is anti-human. They constantly frame humans as the problem. This diminishes the concept of human agency and responsibility in a constructive sense and leads to a fatalistic attitude towards future prospects for societal improvement and technological innovation. This anti-human narrative only leads to feelings of guilt, anxiety, and nihilism among individuals who internalize the message that their mere existence is harmful to the planet. It also demotivates action by suggesting that any human activity will inevitably lead to negative outcomes, thus discouraging people from taking initiative or striving for progress.
We have to believe that young people are persuadable. And I think a lot of us in the elderly community, or near elderly, are losing confidence in that. But you believe it to be true, having just had this experience.
I do, and I think we all have to embrace that approach. I think we're not going to get anywhere by chastising people. We have to try and persuade them. I think that we've got to remember, Tucker, they're young minds. We were all young once, and we were just as idiotic and stubborn and so sure of ourselves that we thought we knew everything. I think we got to fight. We got to fight to change people's minds, and the way to do that is with rational argument and encouraging critical thinking, which is what I hope my speech has done.
Yes, I remember as a young man I was very impressed by and persuaded by people who had forceful ideas they could clearly and rationally express. And I'm glad to see there are still people like that, because you did that. Konstantin Kisin, thank you so much.
We need more people like Constantine to encourage young people to question and analyze the woke ideology, as they should with any ideology, which leads to them developing stronger critical thinking skills. This enables them to assess arguments on their merits, recognizing nuances, and avoid falling into the trap of seeing the world in black and white terms. I also think that as a society, we should strive to promote true inclusivity, which is different from the one being promoted today, since it will be built upon listening to a range of voices, including those that might not align perfectly with one's own views. By moving away from a strictly woke perspective, people can learn to value diverse perspectives and experiences, which is essential for real progress. But what are your thoughts on this? Does Constantine provide a correct description of the woke culture? Let's get the discussion rolling in the comments down below.